$50 billion. Yours, built over decades. Every decision, every risk, every sacrifice. Gone, in one night. You wake up the next morning, the phone is ringing, the markets are open, and the number on your screen has changed from 50 billion to almost nothing. What do you do? This has actually happened to real people, and what they did next will change how you think about money, loss, and what you're actually making. Before we talk about losing it, let's talk about having it. $50 billion doesn't appear overnight. It is built through years of decisions, some brilliant, some reckless, most somewhere in between, through deals that worked when they shouldn't have, through risks that paid off when the odds said they wouldn't, through a specific kind of obsession that most people either admire or cannot understand. You started small. Everyone does. A desk, an idea, a bet on yourself when nobody else would make it, and slowly then quickly it worked. One success led to another. Capital attracted capital. The number grew, and somewhere along the way, the number stopped feeling real. When you have $50 billion, the zeros lose their meaning. You stop feeling the weight of each one. That is the first warning sign that almost nobody catches. When money stops feeling real when the number is so large that it becomes abstract, that is exactly when you start taking risks that the earlier version of you would never have taken. Because the earlier version of you was afraid of losing, the version with $50 billion has forgotten what losing feels like. Until the night it all disappears. The night it happens, it starts quietly. A market move in a time zone you're not thinking about, a number that shifts while you're sleeping, a chain reaction that begins somewhere you've never been and reaches your accounts before you open your eyes. You wake up to a phone that won't stop ringing, your advisor, your banker, your lawyer, all calling at the same time. You already know before you answer because the way a phone rings at 4 in the morning when $50 billion is involved is different from any other ring you've ever heard. You look at the screen, and the number is wrong. Not slightly wrong, not a rounding error, catastrophically wrong. 50 billion has become, 10 billion has become, 3 billion has become a number that means the banks are calling in their loans, and the margin calls are arriving, and the assets are worth less than the debt. In one night. Now here is the question that actually matters. Not, how did this happen? You'll have months to figure that out. The question that matters right now at 4 in the morning, with the phone ringing and the number wrong and the entire architecture of your financial life crumbling, is this. Who are you when the money is gone? Because that answer, the one that emerges in that specific moment, is the only answer that actually determines what happens next. This isn't hypothetical. This has happened multiple times to real people with real billions. In the year 2000, one of the richest men in Asia lost more money in a single year than almost any human being in history. $70 billion gone as the dot-com bubble collapsed around him. His investments in technology companies that had seemed like the future evaporated almost overnight. He went from being worth more than the GDP of several countries to watching decades of work dissolve in months. He did not disappear. He did not give up. He sat with the loss, the full weight of it, and then he rebuilt. Slowly, differently, more carefully. Today, his fortune has recovered and grown beyond what it was before the crash. The loss did not define him. What he did after the loss defined him. Then there was the trader, 28 years old, working at one of the oldest and most respected banks in the world, a bank that had survived wars, depressions, and 2 centuries of financial crises. In less than 2 years, through a series of unauthorized trades that he hid inside an error account, he lost $1.4 billion, more than the bank's entire capital reserves. A 233-year-old institution, gone, bankrupt, sold for £1 British. because of decisions made by one person in a Singapore office who was too afraid to admit he was wrong and too arrogant to stop. And then there was the hedge fund, run by two Nobel Prize winners in economics, the smartest people in any room they entered. They built mathematical models that were supposed to eliminate risk. In 1998, those models met a Russian financial crisis that didn't follow the mathematics. In 4 months, they lost $4.6 billion. The Federal Reserve had to organize a private bailout because the fund was so large that letting it collapse would have triggered a global financial crisis. Nobel Prizes, perfect models, billions in capital, gone because the real world doesn't follow equations. 3 different stories, 3 different causes, one common thread. The people who recovered were the ones who accepted the loss completely and immediately started asking what comes next. The ones who didn't recover were the ones who spent all their energy on what had just happened instead of what. So, back to you. It's 4 in the morning, 50 billion is gone, the phone is ringing. What do you actually do? The first thing, and this is the thing that separates the people who rebuild from the people who don't, is this. You answer the phone. You don't hide. You don't run. You pick up the phone and you deal with what is real, right now, even though what is real right now is catastrophic. Because the moment you stop dealing with reality is the moment reality starts dealing with you on its own terms, and it will not be gentle. The second thing, you find out exactly where you stand. Not approximately, exactly. How much is gone? How much remains? What you owe, and to whom? What can be sold, and for how much? The full picture, however terrible, is always better than an incomplete picture. Uncertainty is more paralyzing than bad news. The third thing, you find the 2 or 3 people who were there before the money, not the ones who appeared after the success, the ones who knew you when you had nothing. Call them. Not to ask for money to remember who you actually are underneath the $50 billion that just disappeared. Because here is what losing $50 billion in one night forces you to confront. The money was never who you were. It was what you had. And what you have can always be taken. Who you are, the judgment, the resilience, the knowledge of how to build something from nothing, nobody can take that. Not in one night. Not ever. The people who rebuilt after catastrophic loss share one characteristic that has nothing to do with intelligence or connections or luck. They are the people who, in the middle of the worst night of their financial lives, asked the right question. Not, why did this happen to me? What do I do next? That shift from looking backward to looking forward is the entire difference between the people in these stories who recovered and the people who didn't. It is a choice, made in the worst possible moment, under maximum pressure, with everything gone. And the people who made it, who chose the forward question in the worst night of their lives, built something the second time that was stronger than anything they had built the first time, because they built it knowing exactly what could be lost. And that knowledge, bought at the price of $50 billion, made them more careful, more focused, and more resilient than any amount of success ever could have. So, what would you do? The answer you just gave yourself honestly, in the privacy of your own mind, tells you more about who you are than $50 billion ever could. Money comes and goes, character forged in the moments when everything is gone that stays. What are you made of?